Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today we're doing another Ask Ashlee. One of the questions I received was, what are my thoughts on year-round homeschooling versus using a traditional homeschooling schedule? We've done both, so I feel like I can speak on both ends, and we're kind of dealing with a lot of that right now. So I'll kind of give an update too. We were supposed to be starting school this upcoming week, back to school, and we're not because we just have some other stuff going on. So I guess I was trying to do more of a year-round schooling, where traditionally we do a traditional school year where we take a long summer break. So let's do a quick update of what's going on with us, and then we'll jump into just some pros and cons that I think of schooling. So we stopped our school year, I think mid-May, and my goal was to take about 4 weeks off and then start mid-June, or a little bit before mid-June. And the reason being is I was traveling for work, and then we were taking a family vacation, and then I had another work trip. So I was trying to kind of not start new school year, new curriculum with all that going. And we have some other stuff going on. So as much as I am staring at piles of new curriculum, I just don't think that it's going to be great to jump into all this new curriculum when we need to take a break again in 2 weeks. So at this time, I've decided we're actually going to delay starting our official new homeschool year to probably mid-July. And that's actually when we started our last homeschool years, when I was following more of the traditional method. So when we were following the traditional method, we would normally stop mid to end of May, and we would pick back up mid to end of July. So we would take a pretty good chunk of summer off, and that was for vacations. My kids would go to summer camp and just take a really good break, but we were just super busy with other things. This year I was like, oh, besides all that work travel, we don't really have much going on. We're not really doing summer camp. All my kids' activities at their end are outside school hours. So I was like, we have nothing going on, let's start school. Well, that's not what's happening. We have become a little bit more busy this month than we originally thought. So we will probably have another month off. During our summer though, we are still learning. And that's kind of where I'm going to get into this. You have to get out of the mindset that just sitting down and doing a textbook is what's considered school. Even when you're on a vacation or off, you can still probably have some learning and things like that. So we're going to use terms loosely too, because I think kids are always learning and school's always happening. But for summer, what my kids have been doing is my youngest, my son, he has been taking an OutSchool class. He's been doing it 3 days a week. It's a reading phonics class. He meets for 40 minutes with a teacher and 4 other kids. And they go through sight words, they read stories together, they do show and tell, and it's really good because it's multiple times a week. I think the multiple times a week is really good for his age level. So he's been doing that, and he also is taking a ninja summer class that he does once a week. So Monday through Thursday, he has at least one thing that he's focusing on that we'll call schoolish. My 2 daughters also have their activities that they are doing, as well as both of them are doing an art type class, so a little bit more extracurriculars that they're doing, and then they both have workbooks that they're working on. So my middle daughter has this summer bridge workbook, which is for if you're finishing 4th grade going into 5th grade, there's a page of math and a page of language arts every day that she's been working on. She's also just been reading books. And then my oldest is working on the Kumon pre-algebra book, so she does a couple pages of that every day, and then she's been reading the Giver series. So that was her last unit that she finished, was reading the Giver, and then there's additional books in that series, so she's been reading those. We're not doing a unit with it or any questions. She's really just reading it because she likes the story. So it's been very low key, but that's what they've been doing. when we've been home. So that's the thing. We were out of town for quite a while. And so that's been that was obviously keeping them busy. We weren't doing school when we were traveling. Now that we are back home, they have been kind of stuck inside. We've had like really crappy weather. I think that was something that I thought, like, once we get past winter, I mean, we're almost in the middle of June, and yesterday it was 48 degrees outside with 50-mile-an-hour winds. And it's just like we can't even go outside and enjoy summer. And so those are the times where I'm like, it's better to be more flexible, where you have that year-round homeschooling method, because living in the Midwest, you can't really predict. Like when I lived in Vegas, I knew like April 1st through October 1st, we had guaranteed warm, nice days where my kids would want to be outside swimming, going to camp. Now in North Dakota, you know, my mind is blown that it's 48 degrees and windy. It's not even how cold it is, it's that it's like just windy. Or like a few weeks ago, there were wildfires in Canada, which I had no idea would affect North Dakota so bad. And now everyone I've talked to is like, oh yeah, even if it's nice weather outside, there's smoke and you can't go outside and breathe. So I actually feel like we've been trapped in the house more since summer started, versus at least in winter, like it was cold, but it wasn't like terrible going outside. So I feel like we're getting a little stir crazy, because as much as summer should be like outside and going to parks and like playing, it's like I feel like we're stuck in this house. So I'm trying to keep the kids busy. I have another work trip coming up in 2 weeks, and then we have another trip we're doing. So really I have about 2 solid weeks that I need to keep the kids like occupied without like their school and without them like traveling. So that's kind of our quick update of like what's going on for summer. Now let's talk about like traditional versus year-round schooling. I think I favor a traditional year, just because I like clear cut, like this is the end of this school year, this is the beginning of this school year. I normally like to celebrate those, like this is the last day of school, this is the first day of school. And then like I said, we were used to like a true summer, so like we knew we would have good summer weather that we wanted to take advantage of. So I definitely lean more towards that. Also, you know, some of my kids' friends or family members, they go to public school, which follows a traditional method. So when they're all out of school, they want to hang out and do activities and plan stuff. So it can be challenging if you're still doing school to try to meet all those, you know, play dates and things like that. As well as, you know, I'm hoping the Midwest gets a little bit better with weather. There's a lot more activities to do. There's a lot more things planned outside. If you're in a homeschool group, you know, park days, field trips, you know, farms should be open. You can go like strawberry picking and all those things. So I think that's why the traditional method is very popular, just for the fact to be available and to have some more freedom and not be tied down by curriculum and things like that. Or like I said, planning wise, it's really nice when I plan our school year to say, okay, this is our last official date, so how are we going to get all of our curriculum done by that date? So it's a little bit more structured in that way, and then you get more of a break, and then it matches more with society, other kids going to school and things like that. But what I will say is when you do that method, the traditional method, one, you're taking a really long time away from book work, from curriculum, from structure. And so one thing is most kids don't do well without structure. So if there's no structure to wake up and go do your schoolwork or whatever the case may be, if you're out of that norm, some kids don't do well with that and they get antsy and they don't know what to do. In my last Ask Ashlee, or one of them, I was talking about kids love learning. And so as much as, you know, my kids are like all other kids and they want to be on break and summer break, they do enjoy learning. And so if you just go completely from 100% school learning to like nothing, you're probably not going to do well with that. You're going to be battling with them wanting to do more technology or them being bored more, you know, things like that. So I feel like we have to like fill our time more. So that can be a struggle. And then learning gaps, especially like in younger kids. You know, my son can't take time off from learning to read. Like, he's in it. And if I were to just stop teaching him how to read for 3 months, I don't think that'd be a great thing. But that's when we get into, like, you know, him sitting down and opening a curriculum book. We can stop that, but me just sitting down and reading a story to him doesn't stop. So that's where you kind of have to use your judgment. Like, what does it really mean to stop doing school? Breaking routines can be difficult in the beginning, and then trying to get back into routines after the fact is a little challenging also. I think, you know, year-round homeschooling, if you can be a little bit more flexible, if you don't really have a ton of summer plans, if all those summer things really aren't happening, I think year-round homeschooling is actually a better option. And when I think of year-round homeschooling, I definitely think of it being more flexible, to where, you know, we're schooling for 3 months straight, and then we're like, you know what, let's take a week off, where you're a little bit more flexible and you can do that and then not stress about finishing your curriculum. Or maybe we're in the holiday months and you have a lot of family coming in town and it's extended, and so you decide to take, you know, from Thanksgiving to New Year's off, and you can do that because you're schooling majority of the year. You also have to consider things like your state rules. If you live in a state that requires a certain number of days of attendance, normally it's 180 days. So you also have to consider that. You know, maybe I've heard people who do, I think, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So you're constantly in like break period. I like that mentality, but I feel like that would be hard for me to plan other things. Like, is the week we're taking off the week we need to take off? So that's a little bit challenging for me to commit to. So I like more of just, we're always schooling. We may take longer breaks around holidays. We may take like a month or a month and a half off around summer. But other than that, we're in like a constant flow. And then we have the flexibility to take days off when something comes up, when, you know, an unexpected trip comes up, or you're trying to plan a trip, you have the flexibility to take time off. If a kid gets sick, you're not stressing when you take time off. And then another benefit is another kind of downside to the traditional and benefit of year round is if you are a family that takes vacations and travels. Well, if you're doing it during summer, everyone else is doing it during summer too. So actually take advantage that you're a homeschool family and you can take a vacation in the middle of April when everyone else is still in school. So that is also something you kind of have to think about. If you're following the traditional school method and you're taking breaks when the traditional schools take breaks, then you're also competing with them when you're traveling or even just going out to do fun stuff. You know, one thing I like about homeschooling is being able to go to the trampoline park on a Wednesday afternoon and all the kids are in school. And so it's not busy, it's not crowded. Or that could be the opposite of what you want. You don't want to go to the trampoline park when no other kids are there. You want to go in the middle of summer when all the kids are out. So I think you have to just like kind of ask yourself, like, what's going to work better for us? And that could be, you know, your schedule. If you're a working parent, it could be, you know, maybe you're having a baby, and, you know, right when that baby is born is probably not going to be the best time to be homeschooling other kids. So maybe you change your school year to where it's a traditional school year where you're taking a longer break, but maybe you're taking that longer break a different part of the year. You're not taking a long summer break, you're taking a long winter break. Or maybe you have a spouse that travels for work, that they, you know, travel for 6 weeks at a time. So maybe that's a good time for you to hunker down and do school. And then when they're back for a month, then you're off. So I think it's very subjective to like your family schedule. And something that I've learned is, like I said, I used to prefer the traditional method because it worked well with our life. It worked well with the weather and all the activities that we would do. But now I don't think that that works best for us anymore. And so even if you think right now traditional is best, you may switch to year round in a different phase of life. And if you move somewhere, or if the needs of your kids change, I have kids that are becoming older. Eventually, I think my kids will probably get little jobs. And so maybe they'll have a summer job. And so maybe school does not happen during summer because they need to work. So I think it's all just depending on what's going to work best. I don't think one is better than the other. I think both have pros and cons, and I think you could make whatever work for you. So this was kind of like an easier topic. It's like I like them both and I've used them both and I see the benefits of both. You know, like I said, like these like little activities all my kids are doing, use things like OutSchool, sign them up for activities. Those are still learning in different ways. It's not just sitting down doing curriculum. So that's also something that I think is important, is like, what is your definition of school? And then kind of loosen that up a little bit, and also make sure you're following your state's guidelines for how many days you need to school, how many hours, tracking, all those things. If you have other comments or questions about year-round homeschooling versus traditional homeschooling, leave those down below, as well as if you have any other topics or questions you would like me to discuss in these Ask Ashlee series, leave them down below. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys are all starting to enjoy summer, whether you're schooling or not schooling. I hope you have a much better weather than we're having, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye guys.